The first year of a second Trump term will look like the last year of the first Trump term. In other words, with all the craziness, with the fresh troops in. Remember, he brought in all the fresh people in March of 2020, and those are the folks that carried that last year that eventually led us through the election and into the 2.5 months of election denialism. And so, yeah, look, I think it's going to be very rough. And the number one attribute that he will seek from anybody coming into the administration will be loyalty, and not to the Constitution, but to him.
That's the thing.
That's the thing. And part of his thing is not just the Senate confirmed people and other political appointees, but as you know, one of the factors, one of the pillars of this kind of retribution pitch when he comes in will be the so-called Schedule F, where he'll try to get rid of all the government employees, the civil service employees, and put in more of his loyalists. So, look, I think there's a lot to be concerned about. I've said I believe he's a threat to democracy, and we should be very mindful of that.
So you'll vote for Biden?
There's no way I will vote for Trump. But every day that Trump does something crazy, the door to voting for Biden opens a little bit more. And that's right.
So, Mike Breen, great to have you back. It's been a while. I can't think of, in my lifetime at least, an example of a cabinet so thoroughly repudiating its former president. I mean, you've got Mark Esper now, the former Secretary of Defense, saying he will not vote for Donald Trump, who was his president, his commander-in-chief when he was the Secretary of Defense. Can you think of another example in at least recent American history where anything like this has happened?
I definitely can't. And, Ken, it'd be a shocking thing if it was one former Secretary of Defense. It's all of them. Every Secretary of Defense, I think, that served this man is like, I wouldn't vote for the guy. I mean, what does that tell you, right? These are the people who are in the most sensitive national security conversations that exist, looking across the desk at the guy with the nuclear codes going, don't give him the nuclear codes again. And it's not just them either. Former chiefs of staff, I think a former Secretary of State, and these are all serious people. It's remarkable. I can't think of a single example at any point in American history.
To me, it is like the best anti-Trump campaign ad. The people who know him best say don't vote for him under any circumstances. You're right. Not just secretaries of defense, but his chiefs of staff, people who were literally 2 steps away from the door to the Oval Office, spent time with him every day. And it's not just about his policies and disagreements they may have over withdrawing from NATO or support for Ukraine. It's a character assessment as well. John Kelly is a great example of someone motivated by that. I mean, he was with the president, former president, when he called dead American service members suckers, when he called people who chose to serve their country in uniform losers. These people aren't turning against him just because they disagree with him on matters of policy. They think he is fundamentally flawed as a human being.
Yeah, and by all the evidence indicates they're right about that. The fact that they're all saying it publicly ought to really shake us. And that in particular, I know you feel the same way as a veteran. I mean, I vividly remember going to Arlington National Cemetery during Trump's presidency on Memorial Day one day, wanting to visit Section 60 and go say, my respects to a good friend of mine who's there. And standing for hours on the fringes of Section 60 with families of those veterans who are, those lost heroes who are in that part of Arlington. And for those of you who don't know, that's where the veterans who lost their lives in Iraq and Afghanistan, that's where most of them are buried, if they're buried in Arlington. We were all standing there waiting to go pay our respects to people we genuinely loved, but we couldn't get into Section 60 because it was closed because there were dignitaries there doing photo ops that morning instead. And it turned out that the former President Trump was one of those people. And so every time I think of that comment, he's calling, our fallen brothers and sisters suckers for having given the last full measure of devotion to our country. I think about standing there with their parents, their widows, their children, waiting for hours in the hot sun, to just go pay our respects at the graves of people we cared about. Well, that guy took up all the space for a photo op when, it's clear he held all these people we love in contempt. You can probably tell, still makes me pretty emotional thinking about it. It takes a lot for a former cabinet secretary to come out and say, essentially, I spent years of my life serving in the administration of this person, and I'm telling you, like, don't support them. And you imagine what that must take. The fact that so many of them have done it is an incredible signal to all of us.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Between now and the election, I'm going to highlight a handful of critical pro-democracy efforts that I want you to know about. The first of these is Veterans for Responsible Leadership, or VFRL. It's an organization on the front lines of the battle to protect our democratic safeguards and to hold accountable those who would dismantle them. VFRL's number one priority between now and November is preventing Donald Trump from being reelected. As an organization led by veterans, VFRL is bringing to bear all that experience and credibility to persuade other veterans and military family members that a vote for Donald Trump is a vote that undermines the very Constitution that those in the military swore to uphold. Here's where VFRL needs your help. If you are a veteran or a family member of one, and if you're looking for ways to make meaningful contributions between now and November, go to VFRL.org. The team there is working on a number of critical initiatives that will make a difference in the coming presidential election. But they need more veteran voices and more volunteers. If you're up for it, go to VFRL.org and sign up. I'll have more updates in the coming months on what they have planned, but trust me, it'll be worth your time. Thanks. This episode of Burn the Boats is brought to you by Manacor Honey, also known as honey with superpowers. Let me share something sweet with you, and I mean really sweet. It's something that's become a staple in my routine, and I think you're going to love it. I'm talking about Manacor Honey. When I say honey, you might be picturing those bear-shaped bottles at the supermarket, but that's not what this is. Manacor Honey is single origin, rich, creamy, and the most delicious honey you've ever had. It's supercharged with unique antioxidants and prebiotics and has 3 times more than your average honey. Manacor Honey supports immunity, aids digestion, boosts energy, and helps balance inflammation. It's a game changer, and all you need is 1 to 3 teaspoons a day. On top of that, Manacor Honey has a natural antibacterial compound called MGO, only found in Manacor Honey. So if you're looking for something simple and delicious to add to your wellness routine, we found your new healthy habit. Now it's easier than ever to try Manacor Honey with the starter kit. Just head to manacor.com/boats to get $25 off. The starter kit comes with an MGO 850 plus Manuka honey, 5 honey travel sticks, a wooden spoon, plus a guidebook. Now, I love the jar and the squeeze bottle, but the extra pack of compostable honey sticks is perfect for whenever you're on the go. You can bring them with you when you're traveling or need a quick snack running errands, and they are the perfect energy boost if you're out for a run or at the gym. That's manukora.com/boats to get $25 off your starter kit. This is the ultimate honey. Indulge and try some honey with superpowers from Manacor. Manacor is incredible, and I'm so thankful they're a partner of the show. I look forward to Manacor every morning. Make sure you click the link in our description or head to manacor.com/boats and try some today. Do you think enough of our buddies from our military days are hearing that yet? I got this question today. I did the Lincoln Project podcast, and it always comes up. Why do so many vets and so many people still serving support President Trump? And my only explanation is that they haven't heard enough from people like us about who President Trump really is. The statements from John Kelly, they're not reading his book. They're not watching, I don't know what show Mark Esper was on, but they're not watching that show. It is incumbent upon us to talk to our buddies one-on-one about the truth about President Trump. Do you have a better explanation why so many vets still support a man who called their fallen buddies suckers?
Yeah, I think that's the main explanation, is maybe they just kind of haven't heard it. But I think there's a second explanation too, or or maybe just something we need to do. I think our vets and our military families, after the past 20 years, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, everything else that's happened, the way that a lot of these conflicts ended, especially Afghanistan, it's not enough to hear that Trump doesn't respect them. And I think they need to hear from other leaders that the pain and disillusionment they're feeling about what happened is real, that the way it all ended wasn't their fault, and that national elites made a lot of mistakes, and they paid the price for those mistakes. I think that's a message that, as awful as he is, Trump has been willing to say, essentially, elites were wrong in 20 years of war, didn't need to go the way it needed to go. And the wrong people paid the price for that. And I don't think there's any integrity in that message coming from a guy like Donald Trump. But what I do think is more other leaders in this country have to be willing to be honest and connect. There's a lot of families lost a hell of a lot over the last 2 decades, and they deserve better than that than I think the level of ownership they've gotten about that from some of our leaders. It's an uncomfortable truth, but I think we got to face it.
I think that is spot on, and I haven't thought enough about it. And a lot of the people I listen to and look up to haven't thought of enough about it. But so many of the vets I talk to who support Trump are angry. They're pissed off. They can't even explain why. They're just mad, and they know Trump's mad too, and so that resonates with them.
Yeah.
He's tearing things down, and they want to tear things down. And maybe part of the salve is acknowledging their anger. The ones who aren't angry because of changing demographics and things like that, but the ones who are angry because of what happened in Afghanistan, or the ones who are angry because they lost buddies and nobody explained to them why. I think you're right. We have to do a better job, if we can't explain why, at least acknowledging the legitimacy of some of that anger.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think it is legitimate. I'm not talking about the misplaced anger so much as this is in that brilliant film you made about people who are mad just because their neighbors don't look like them or they feel like they don't own the country. Yeah. I'm not talking about that. And then they want to hang a flag on it. And worth noting too that a lot of the veterans who are part of that documentary, not all of them, but a lot of them in Against All Enemies, are guys who never deployed. Or guys who washed out pretty early on in their military careers, right? And so being a veteran is part of who they are, but it's not the reason for much, I don't think, when you get right down to it. But you're talking about somebody who spent years of their life in the Middle East, in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Iraq. They have a right to have somebody try to explain to them what the hell it was for. Or at the very least, have somebody say, I was part of the national policy making elite that started these wars and kept them going. And we were wrong. We screwed up. I mean, just that simple integrity. Because to not do that leaves the lane open for somebody like Trump, who comes along and says, they've been lying to you this whole time, and I'm the only one who won't.
Yeah, right on. Well, you brought up the film. You open the film. I'm sure most of this audience knows just how important this project was to me over the past few years. It's incredibly humbling to see it rocket to #1 on the Apple TV charts. But I think it's a good opportunity to ask you, as one of the stars of the film, what do you think is so resonant about this movie at this time? Why is it beating, Dune and Barbie on the Apple TV charts? I didn't even anticipate that as much as I cared about the project, but it has struck a chord that I didn't even anticipate.
For sure. And I didn't anticipate that level of success either, Ken. I would have gotten a better haircut if I had. But no, I think it is a really well-made film. There's a lot of heart in it. I think it's an honest attempt to bring us together by telling multiple sides of a story and letting perspectives be shared. And I think it taps into a lot of well-founded fear about the trajectory our politics might be on.
Yeah.
It's a scary film. I find it to be a hopeful film in some ways too, because I think when I walk away from it, what I hope I see is people who don't have to be as divided as they are. I see a few things that, I hope a few good conversations could solve. And maybe I'm being naive. I mean, there's a lot of racism. There's a lot of hate. There's a lot of deep distrust that lurks behind these things, a lot of ugliness that lurks behind a lot of these views. But there's also a lot of misplaced idealism that's been manipulated by liars. And that to me is the hope in it. I think it's a great film. I hope everybody goes and sees it. I hope it sparks a ton of conversations. And I hope it helps us see one another as just a little bit more human in a time when that can be kind of hard to do across some of these divides.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Mike, for everything, for your participation in the film, for your belief in the project. We're going to walk you out with the trailer, which some folks may be tired of seeing, but this is the task of marketing a movie in this day and age. Here we go. Thanks again.
Thanks, Ken.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. The film Against All Enemies, which I co-produced with Ben Meiselas and this network, has won awards around the world for its up-close portrayal of America's insurrectionist movement. It premieres in the U.S. on March 29th on Amazon and Apple TV. Go to againstalllenemiesfilm.com or click the link below. But don't just watch Against All Enemies. Tell your friends about it. It's one more way to hold accountable those who threaten our democracy. Thanks, Meidas Mighty. Let's use our power well.